Should I get Bupa? It seems cheap, convenient. I am planning to move to the UK again in September, after some years of being abroad. I am not an UK national, but I am familiar with the NHS. I got a quote from Bupa's website. I am 27, selected the most comprehensive option so that everything is covered and I can access their hospitals, clinics in central London, and it came to be something around £1100 a year. It does not seem that much for an all-inclusive health insurance that, from my understanding, allows you to get to your healthcare needs in a much quicker fashion than the NHS. It seems a bit like a no-brainer to me. Maybe I'm missing something. That the likelihood of a healthy 27-year-old needing hospital treatment of the type covered by Bupa, anything emergency related, will still be NHS is virtually zero, and that's why the fees are cheap. I wouldn't say that it is better than the NHS. Certainly in every case I have Bupa and saw a consultant at a private hospital for hip surgery. The surgeon was expensive, and so Bupa decided to remove him from their approved list. So, I ended up seeing my GP for a referral instead on the NHS. I ended up seeing the same consultant at the same private hospital, and the waiting time was only a couple of weeks longer. I ended up having the surgery on the NHS as Bupa wouldn't pay for the particular surgeon, but then got a cheque from Bupa for £1,000 for using NHS. Mine is paid by employer, and I didn't use for a long time until I learned how amazing it is. You can see a GP online for free on the same day, and they refer you to see a private specialist. The private specialist was in a fancy private clinic, no rush, all the tests and scans, 5-star experience. I finally checked a long suspected issue that I postponed checking because I couldn't be bothered getting my NHS GP to refer me to a specialist and then wait for months. I have Bupa. I'm a 30, and it has been a godsend. If you are ever unlucky enough to have something diagnosed that requires a specialist, you're going to be waiting a long time on the NHS. £2,000 a year has allowed me mental health treatment, a leg operation, gynae investigations and ops, and virtually instant GP access, free physio, etc. The waiting times for these specialties is upwards of 18 months in my area. It's expensive, but my God, it's worth it if you need it. Private health cover is amazing. I have mine through work and can get a video GP appointment in less than 10 minutes. If any issues come to light, then you refer to a specialist and receive an appointment in less than 10 days. I don't pay for mine, but I'd say it's worth it. I'm 29 BTW. I'm not a fan of Bupa at all. Had a few bad experiences with them. The worst was 11 months into my first year of paying for coverage. Found a lump on one of my balls, went to the doctor, he said I need a scan ASAP, phoned Bupa and they said it could be a pre-existing condition and I wasn't covered. Yeah, I've left a worrying lump for 11 months, idiots. When they did decide to cover the cost of the scan, they didn't pay the consultant, which meant I received a bill demanding payment. Was all sorted out eventually, but when you get bad news, the last thing you want is bad news adding on top of that. NHS paramedic here. Bupa won't cover any emergency care, so any unforeseen events will require NHS ambulance. I've also been called to Bupa hospitals for jobs where things have gone wrong and they can't handle it and bounce it to the NHS to pick up the pieces. Private care in the UK is a joke and nothing more than a money grab with the safety net of the NHS when they feel it's not profitable to manage or treat you. It's good for getting minor tests done faster, but for the big life events and the unexpected, you'll still be with the NHS despite paying for Bupa. Bupa don't reimburse their doctors well, so many resent treating Bupa patients and you get a second-class service. If you can afford it, go for it. The NHS is in dire shape, and the way it's considered a quasi-religious cult makes an honest conversation on reform political suicide. I've gone private for healthcare once in my life. It's significantly quicker and better. Entirely your choice, based on how much value you place on that service. Did you check if there's an excess? I got a quote when I left work and realized there was an excess, which was probably about the cost of an initial consultant appointment. Honestly, if I were you, I'd get it. So that prior conditions are covered. I'm in my late 30s now, and if I were to get insurance anew now, it would exclude so much as to be nearly useless. In contrast to all the yes to insurance, it really depends on where you live. I've gone from non-specialist through assessment at hospital to surgical team in less than a week for an injury that was not life-threatening, but has left me with some nerve damage. I've lived in the countryside between 3 medium-sized hospitals and a 40-minute drive from a specialist hospital. It was all through NHS. My sister briefly worked for Bupa, handling calls on their claims line. She left after a short while as it was too depressing spending all day denying people's claims. You are missing nothing. You are unlikely to need it, and should check exactly what you get, but if you did need it you would have much faster access to certain things. This insurance is more I have torn my ACL rather than I am having a heart attack insurance, of course. Emergency stuff like that is via the NHS. I have found a job in viral marketing for Bupa, after some years of being abroad. I am not an UK national, but I am familiar with spam bots. I was asked by Bupa to promote their products on Reddit. I am 27, selected this sub as a promising target so that I can pay my rent, afford to eat in central London, and I get paid something around £1200 a month. It does not seem that much for a pretty shitty job that, from my understanding, makes me look like an obvious shill. It seems a bit of a waste of everyone's time to me. Maybe I'm missing something. You only need Bupa if you want speed, since the NHS can be slow, or you don't like sitting in amongst the poor people. I'd say go for it. 1 MRI for a sports injury or anything like that, and you are quids in. It's not worth actually paying for. I have it for free through my employer, so I pay $20 and it's nice to have but not worth paying. For non-essential stuff it's worth it. I had cysts cut out my head. Botox for TMJ. MH support. Couldn't get any of that with NHS. But Bupa couldn't help with any of my pregnancy or postpartum care or ADHD diagnosis treatment. Damn, this turned out to be a hot topic, eh? Smiley face, smiley face. Bupa is amazing. NHS is really, really awful for basic care. The timelines are ridiculous. You should try Benenden. They are owned by Bupa and charge much less monthly. Private medical is well worth it. I have it through work for my whole family. No offense to NHS, but to be able to see specialists quickly and jump waiting lists. It's a waste of money until it's not. Then it's too late. Not sure about Bupa, but private medical care, yes. People with cancer symptoms are waiting over a year to see a specialist in some cases. NHS is that bad and potentially life-threatening. The NHS is quite prepared to let you die on a waiting list. It means literally nothing to them. Bupa will get you treatment as fast as you feasibly can in the UK. You don't need it until you need it, at which point your life depends on it. Private medical cover is a must. I pay just over £100 a month for myself, partner and our child with AXA. It's worth every penny to me, as our doctors are very hard to get an appointment and even harder to get a referral for anything. I used to pay the same amount for Sky TV, and my family's health is way more important, so it seems a small price to pay for peace of mind. Just for did a quote for me and my wife for all singing and dancing. Bupa covered £1740. Private health insurance usually does not cover primary care outside of virtual GP appointments that can be as hard to get as regular ones, and you'd have to pay full cost for prescriptions too. Private healthcare is cheaper because we also have the NHS as competition. I think Bupa is good value, to be honest, but see if it works for your circumstances.